And this week we will talk about theatre command. The Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, has recently spelled out the roadmap for restructuring the armed forces. While the Air Defence Command, led by Indian Air Force, will be rolled out by early 2021, a study will be commissioned by the end of the March this year to explore the idea of having an Indian Ocean-centred Peninsular Command by merging the Eastern and Western Naval Commands. Now, another study on theaterization of commands will be in place by the end of this year. Based on the recommendations, the theatre commands are likely to be rolled out by 2022. As of now, India has 19 commands amongst 3 armed forces, out of which only 2, that is Andaman Nicobar Command and the Strategic Forces Command, are Tri-Services Commands. So what exactly is theaterization of the armed forces, or what are theatre commands, and how will it add to the heft of the Indian armed forces? What exactly is required? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with retired Brigadier Dr. Rajiv Bhutani with us. We also have with us retired Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha and Mr. Mayank Singh, senior journalist who keeps a tab on the defence issues and aspects as well. Let me begin with you, Brigadier Bhutani, and let's start by understanding the concept of theatre commands.
Now, let me first answer a very simple question. That is, what is theatre? In military parlance, theatre is a contiguous geographical area over which the military operations are carried out. And theatre is not a new term. It has been in existence, or rather it became dominant during World War II. When Field Marshal Montgomery in North Africa, he moved his supporting Air Force headquarters from Alexandria to El Amin, where his 8th Army headquarters are located. Thereafter, you know the Normandy landings, that is a classic example where the integration between various services of different countries was achieved. The same thing was followed in Korea, but thereafter the lesson was forgotten. And the United States, they came with the Goldwater-Nicholas Act of 1986, and in 1986 onwards, they constituted what we call theatre command. They call it combatant commands. And they got total 9 in number, and these combatant commands are aligned according to their geographical area or even globally as per their function. And the various departments of our services of the armed forces, that is Army, Navy, Air Force and the Marine Corps, they report to a single combatant commander, and the combatant commander in turn, to carry out his operation, he gets the order straight from president.
Okay.
So that is in case of US.
So how does that translate into the Indian scenario when we look at what is being proposed right now and what we have?
Yeah, that's right. Now, we Indians are not lacking in our thinking. In fact, our thinking goes back, that ancient history I'll talk later, but I can say in the later 1980s, our illustrious strategic thinker like Mr. K. Subramaniam, who is father of our Minister of External Affairs S. Jaishankar, and even Lieutenant General S. K. Sinha, a soldier statesman, they have been talking about that we should have theatre commands and the combined defence staff, the Chief of Defence Staff. And but what happened that there was no political will, and there was a bureaucratic interference resulting into a number of committees and all, and that's how what we now got is because of our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that once he took over in 2014, you can say in 2015 Combined Commanders Conference, he showed his concern for lack of jointness among the 3 armed forces. What he said was that jointness at the top is a need that is long overdue.
Okay.
Thereafter, in 2017, 21st January, in Indian Military Academy, Dehradun, there was another conference of Combined Commanders where Admiral Sunil Lamba, who was the Chairman Chief of Staff Committee, he gave a presentation about the theatre command. And I must admire that the Prime Minister had the courage of conviction, and he got that foresight that immediately after taking over on next tenure, he initiated that concept.
Okay, so the ball has been set rolling as far as the restructuring is concerned. Admiral Sinha, I'd like to bring you in here, and the entire process of restructuring has been talked about a lot, as Brigadier Bhutani also pointed out. The history and the timeline as well. But if we look at the specifics, and if we look at the proposal which is being talked about by the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, how do you look at this entire proposal and specifically the Peninsular Command?
You know, what is good that has happened is that the CDS has the power to take these decisions and carry them forward. Unlike the old time when the decisions were very late to come and you know, it used to take some time to implement. But here it is a foregone conclusion, it is a decision that there will be theatre commands, you will have to reduce the numbers, there will be jointness. So one big hurdle has been crossed. What the committees are going to do is not to find out whether we should do it or not. The committees are going to do as to how to do it. So the decision of shall we do or not, that is way behind. Now you ask me about this theaterization of command. Now theaterization of command is necessary, as you would recall that I was heading the IDS headquarters for quite some time when we didn't have a CDS. So the proposal and the full framework had been submitted to the government. Now here a peninsular command, how to effect it is the study which has been instituted, and I am sure that the naval headquarters will come out with, not to say it can't be done, but how it is to be done. Similarly for the, you know, there is talk about Western Command, there is a talk about an Eastern Command, an Air Defence Command, and Jammu Kashmir they still have not decided should it be a, you know, independent command or should it be part of some command. So because what happens as far as J&K is concerned, some part of it is today is being looked after by Northern Command and some part of it is being looked after by Western Command. So there is a little bit of duality which makes the processes of decision making and implementation a little bit, well, it's an information technology days, but still it takes a little bit of time.
Okay.
Now, as far as the Peninsular Command is concerned, my sense is that it will be probably be called an Indian Ocean Command because that specifies very, whereas when you say peninsula, it looks like a sort of a land construct. But when you say it's an Indian Ocean Command, then it shows that it's the maritime primacy. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to happen. But the assets, possibly some more assets will be required in all three cases. Because if you have the Northern Command of the Army and Eastern Command and Western Command, the Air Force right now the assets may not be adequate to allocate permanent forces with each of the commanders.
Okay.
So therefore there will have to be some double banking, there has to be some redeployment, etc., etc. But that they will, I am sure they will work it out. So it is a good thing to happen. It's a unity of command is always better. The areas are going to become vast as far as the Navy is concerned, and he has also said that it will be headed by a naval officer, and rightly so. But it will have some little bit of Air Force component because now they have a, you know, strike element, etc., etc. But the strike element still requires input from a maritime patrol aircraft. So I think that it's a good thing to happen. Assets, I guess that asset build up, you know, will take some time. And therefore, the implementation of these, my sense is that they will have to go a little bit slower than what we think at the moment.
Okay, I'll come back to you on the other aspect as well, on the integration part where you spoke about the assets as well. But let me first bring Mayank here. Mayank, jointness and the integration seems to be the underlying theme here, something which has been talked about for quite some time now in terms of the reforms in our armed forces as well as the defense structure which we have. So one, so far so good, the ball has been set rolling, but as Admiral Sinha pointed out, you know, the question now is how to do it.
See, the things started actually were initiated after Kargil. When Kargil committee report was brought out, group of ministers report was brought out, CDS was the one which was specifically spoken about, and there was a purpose. Let us understand the purpose. Even if today, if we are going for theatre command, there's a reason actually. And what is the reason? People, the policy makers, the strategic thinkers, they found that the future wars are going to be small, of few days, quick, but very explosive. I mean, having a lot of assets being used in that small duration. So in that case, decision making will be the one which will be very crucial. So you can't be Army can't be asking to Air Force to provide a support when the person sitting there can himself take the decisions. So here comes a region, as Brigadier Bhutani said, which is under one officer, who is entitled, empowered to marshal any asset, naval, air or land, as per the requirement of the operation for a quick reaction. So your aim is deciding what is happening today. Now how it has to be done? The CDS, General Bipin Rawat himself says that he has already started a study for the Air Defence Command under the Vice Chief of Air Staff. He says that the GSL letters will be issued by December, and for that he'll be giving around 3 months for the committee, for the study group to study that thing. But point to be underlined is all these are to pick up the options so that we find a structure which is indigenous, which might have reference from Chinese style of theatre commands, US style of theatre commands, but it will be a kind of an indigenous kind of a theatre command.
Which fits the needs and requirements of the Indian Defence Forces.
India is a very unique geographical feature. You have got 7,500, around 600 long maritime borders, huge mountainous borders, Northern Command. Here's a Western theatre which will have marshes, deserts, mountains. You require a unique format of your own theatre commands.
Okay.
So the studies are going to set, the ball has been rolled, the studies will bring out the options for you, and then from all the feedback you will choose a style of a theatre command, a structure of a theatre command which will meet the future requirements.
And which will meet the future requirements in terms of what our security needs are and what our armed forces are equipped with in terms of assets as well. Brigadier Bhutani, coming back to you, and the same question which I put to Mayank here. In terms of the way you look at it, what are the options in terms of implementation, or in terms of coming to that decision of what suits our defense needs, our security needs, and keeping in mind our assets?
Now, if you see, the best thing is to start with the lowest denominator. That's what our CDS, General Rawat, has done. They are starting with Air Defence Command first. Because there is a semblance of joint working existing between the Indian Air Force and the Army Air Defence. They work together in field at various places. And the Indian Air Force is primarily responsible for the entire air defence of the country. And Army Air Defence further contributes to it. Air Defence has got, Indian Air Force has got both offensive as well as defensive assets, whereas Army Air Defence has got their guns, missiles and radars. So they can easily be integrated into each other, and it's a question of establishing one commander over them, and you should have good communication, what is already existing on ground, and you can carry out the task. Okay. And in fact, I feel that if we, as Mayank has told, that we should have a command which is having Indian characteristics. That we, like United States or China, they got tremendous resources, they can allocate. But in our case, the hallmark is not allocation, but it is the utilization of resources in a very flexible manner.
Okay.
I'll give you example, artillery. Artillery has got long range weapons. So how do they achieve allocation? The long range is given in direct support to some. At the same time, same artillery can be deployed for a different unit in support by allocating them at priority or in that manner.
Okay, so it's basically, all allocation should be based on the optimum utilization of resources or the assets, something which Admiral Sinha was pointing out. Admiral Sinha, one aspect, if you look at, apart from obviously allocation of resources or the way it is required, or the indigenous character of the way we do it, is something which the studies will go into and the options will be there. But one more point which I want to talk to you about is about the idea of having that separate command for the northern frontier or the western frontier, bringing them together from the perspective of our adversaries, say for example vis-a-vis Pakistan or vis-a-vis China.
You're right, and that is why the issue about Jammu Kashmir, which I mentioned, because as you know that some parts of it is Ladakh and some part of it is the Jammu and Kashmir area. Ladakh, there is we are facing the Chinese, and from there we start and goes right up to the Arunachal Pradesh and further down. So that's a very, very big command, really speaking. Right now the responsibility is between the northern and the eastern command, so that needs to have a unity of command. And if you see the western theatre now, the desert area is looked after by the southern command, and some part of the hill and mountain area is looked after by the western command. So there is a duality. So in all probability, you know, these two will probably become one, so that you have the decision making that much easier. And if they are fighting with each other in support, in that case, probably the Chief of Army Staff or the CDS, they will take a call. But I'll go back to what Brigadier Bhutani said. You know, the future wars are going to be intense. They are going to be, sorry, you said, Mayank said short period, etc. So what we want to do is, if it is short period, all assets of three services must be utilized to achieve one objective. And that objective is to get better of the adversary. And from that point of view, even if these are land-based commands, they will also have the naval component attached to it in the operations wing, so that we know that how can we bring unseen pressures on the adversary by various naval assets, because as you know, they have a very much longer range and longer reach. Obviously, they can't fight over land, but they can support the land war in a very effective manner. And I'll take you back to Kargil, mention of which was made. One of the reasons why President General Musharraf had to back out, one of the reasons, because the Karachi port was virtually absolutely isolated. A lot of their equipment and ammunitions, etc. were not allowed. None of the ships were allowed to come out, and therefore the pressure was, he was told by the Americans that, look, I can only share that it will be devastating if you continue, because the entire navy is deployed on the northern Arabian Sea, south of Makran coast. So the pressures, in the psychological pressures, are important apart from fighting, you know, or doing a battle over the sea. Impacting the land war is one of the most important duties of the other two services. But finally, the infantry has to hold ground. You have to protect him. Their lives which are in danger.
And all three forces have to work as a cohesive unit.
Absolutely.
That's what the basic idea is.
That's correct. Entire force level has to be, entire force has to be applied, including the hybrid warfare, the new methods of warfare. You will have cyber, you will have special forces, you will have the space command. So all these things right now in the making, but what will happen 5-10 years later, I am sure that this is going to be that much helpful.
Okay. Mayank, you know, there are several options which has been talked about in terms of having different commands. The Peninsula Command, the Air Defense Command, which might be the first one to be rolled out. Then maybe if you look at one specifically being talked about with respect to the J&K, or, you know, looking at our adversaries, Pakistan and China, and then maybe others as well, few others as well. So what is the, you know, broad structure which you believe might come out at the end of it, based on what?
So to simplify it for everyone, actually, let's say there's a single man and he's competent enough to take decision. So let's say if any war takes place or any danger to the country comes, he has under him all the assets which he can utilize to achieve a particular goal. Actually, war is fought only when the political decision is taken. And defense forces, they implement the decisions, they bring in the decisions. So here you find all the options before you, I mean, how the assets will be there, what all assets are under you, how you are going to implement them. You have a geography. Your country is this much, let's say whatever the map is of India, and then you have maritime borders also, you have exclusive economic zones. That's your area of interest. So accordingly, what you do is actually you marshal your assets, then you divide them in such a way that your political objectives will finally be achieved. If let's say there will be one logistics command and it is at the center of the country, whatever the map is, if you mentally refer that, if centrally located logistics command is there, it is supplying to all the formations. And for example, let's say there are 5 theatre commands: Northern Command, Northern Theatre Command, Western Theatre Command, Peninsular Theatre Command, and then you have got your Air Defense Command, and then you have got your then elements of cyberspace, elements of space, they all will be coming. That will also be distributed.
Okay.
So logistically, the most important thing was logistics actually, to bring it in between. It is supplying to everyone, you are fighting wars, and then accordingly the regions, as per your specific targets and goals or threat perceptions, your regions are divided.
Okay.
So let's say if you have got, for example, you have got 5 commands. Another option which was also given is, let's say if your northern borders contiguous to line of actual control, which is 3,488 kilometers, if it is there and if it appears to be too long, because western border is not that long. So there are also options that keeping Nepal at the center, you divide it east of Nepal, west of Nepal, and then accordingly you commit your assets.
Okay.
I will always, repeat it again. The main thing objective is to achieve upper hand over the adversary, whatever the need be.
Okay.
So all the committees, all the further which are going to study, they will give you the options, and then finally we'll come to the option.
Okay, let's have two concluding comments from Admiral Sinha and Brigadier Bhutani as well on the way forward from here as far as the entire theaterization of commands is concerned, and what is it that we might see in the near future in realization of these plans.
In way forward, first I see that there should not be any problem in getting Air Defence Command, and next should be the Logistic Command. As Mayank has rightly brought out that if you go literally by the definition, that logistics is the movement of science of movement. But here, logistics not only means the movement, but it is the maintenance and the procurement of common equipment which is used by all the three services. So if we achieve that, then it's going to be a good integration and jointness among the three services.
Okay. Admiral Sinha?
I have 2 points. One is that for the joint command or the concept of CDS to succeed, the three chiefs will have to be, they will have to work very hard. They will have to give up some of their turf, and they must do it because it was our requirement, it was our suggestion to government that there should be a CDS so that decision making becomes easier. The second important point is that when the assets are less, then it is quite possible that the peacetime allocation and the wartime allocation will differ. It is quite possible that in the peacetime the allocations may not be exactly what it is going to be in wartime, because as you rightly pointed out, the assets are not so much till such time we build up the assets, and therefore the chiefs will have to give up their some turf as far as the shortage of assets are concerned. It cannot happen that the Western Army Command says, the Western Command say, Western Theatre Command, that I require so much of air asset all the time under my thumb. It may not happen, because you are not in a wartime scenario. If war happens, if it is a one front, in that case obviously the Air Force will be the position from where he can cover this entire theatre or maybe move certain squadrons on that area, and very quickly. So I think that we are moving in the direction that a peacetime and wartime, possibly the allocations will have to be a little bit different.
Okay.
Another point was on the Peninsular Command. We tend to forget that we have choke points are under surveillance at all times, and we need to sustain that, because maritime war takes time to build up, and before it impacts the land war, it is quite some time. It is not that suddenly something will happen, just like let's say the Army or the Air Force. In the Navy, it takes time and people have to come. Our adversaries have to come from somewhere, and during that period he can be tracked, he can be found out, and therefore Navy's role will not limited only to exclusive economic zone, but it will to all the choke points to ensure that sea lanes of communication are available for usage of the whole world. So that is the intention of most of the Navy.
Okay,
so that is how the assets will be deployed.
Okay, and then that will be very crucial point there as well. Your concluding points, Mayank, here from the way we are looking at it right now, the positions and the way forward.
Armed forces during peacetime, they keep exercising various formats of war, various options, and if so happens, there are scenarios painted. Last year there was an exercise done by the Air Force which was called Gagan Shakti, in which entire assets were moved from one theatre to another theatre, if we call it so. So the day the order has come, it is taken for granted that our forces have already started their exercising their minds. And as Admiral Sinha said, the Peninsular Command is not actually a kind of a command which will just man the oceans. It's a very futuristic command which has got its diplomatic roles also. So things have already started moving. The time the studies come out, the options will be coming out, they will again be studied.
Okay.
So it's all going well, but whatever said and done, we have come in the right direction now.
Okay, so there it is, as our panelists have pointed out.